Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. Dr. Mia Bloom was fantastic. A great discussion about QAnon.
Mia's hilarious, and as I was just telling the guys that she's actually famous for rolling her eyes on Fox News when Dr. Seb Gorka was being introduced. So if you really want some amusement, just type in Mia Bloom Seb Gorka eye roll.
Yep.
When they were doing his credentials.
Yes.
His credentials.
Yes.
And she is a real terrorism expert. I mean, I'm not even in the same league. She's a go-to FBI profiler and expert on women and children in terrorism, and teaching in Atlanta. And this new book on QAnon, I didn't even read it because I didn't want to be influenced as I was writing my crazy book on the Trump insurgency. And then I read it, and it's a great, great book.
And there's an obviously intersection. I mean, that's the whole point. I love the way she describes it, Malcolm, is QAnon's a sticky ball rolling down a hill, and it's like election, fraud and January 6th and all these others, Black Lives Matter. I mean, all these conspiracies stick to this, what was originally an anti-vaxxers. I mean, it all comes together, right? And then Russia jumps in as usual.
Well, the tar that you have to understand that this sticky ball is made up of is their adoration of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that's fundamental. I mean, I was going over the section of my book about QAnon because we're talking about all these military and intelligence people, generals and admirals and ex-NSA people who all went nuts and became these huge QAnon influencers and are advocating, like Michael Scheuer, ex-CIA officer who ran the Bin Laden unit, advocating genocide against liberals.
Yeah.
Openly.
Well, Malcolm, you've said it a long time ago, and we just did, what was it yesterday, Travis? Is it 47% of Republicans think we're going to have to take up arms against each other? What you've been warning about, civil war.
Yes. Actually, there's a better statistic from a Pew poll that said 29% of Americans believe that they are going to have to take their country back and use violence to do it. That was a Pew poll from a couple of months ago.
Oy.
It leads off one of my chapters. And that's not Republican voters. That's Americans. So 1 in 3-ish Americans believes that they're going to have to overthrow the government using violence.
Wow.
This is a wild combination of QAnon, this Trump cultism. The Republican Party has been taken over by QAnon, but they removed the letter Q. You can't come in QAnon shirts anymore to rallies. You can't bring any Q paraphernalia. But what does that matter when you espouse the same philosophy?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this latest news because obviously terrorism analyst. So the headline is, why did Lauren Boebert lead a late-night Capitol tour 3 weeks before January 6th? On the night of December 12th, the day of the first Stop the Steal rally in Washington and 3 weeks ahead of January 6th insurrection, several guests of then Representative-elect Lauren Boebert received an exclusive after-hours tour of the Capitol building. There are several unanswered questions about this visit, which appears to have violated normal Capitol protocol in various ways. It's not clear who authorized it, since Boebert was not yet a member of Congress, had no official standing in D.C. It's perhaps even stranger it occurred on a Saturday night when the Capitol is closed. Later in the aftermath of the January 6th attack, Boebert repeatedly denied rumors she had offered reconnaissance tours to would-be rioters shortly before the event, but her ambiguous comments appeared to avoid any specific discussion of this unexplained December tour. So let's see. It involved various parts of the complex, the staircase in the Senate's empty Brumidi corridors, Senate Room S-127, the Senate briefing room, as well as the then vacant Capitol Rotunda. Also, guidelines for member-led Capitol tours. They're only available weekdays 9 to 3 p.m. Also, that all visitors must sign liability waivers. Tours must be led by official Capitol guide, not a Capitol police officer, which it was led by. And then there's the video on January 6th, she and her mother at the Save America rally with Ali Alexander, who can be seen directly behind her in the clip. At around that time, she tweeted, "Today is 1776.
Right.
Yes. With all your intelligence analysts, what does that all add up to you, Malcolm?
Well, first off, I think that she's cleverly being able to dodge this by when people ask her if she gave a reconnaissance tour, right? Which means that she has some intent, that she knew what to do, that this was done for intelligence collection purposes. It doesn't have to be that at all for it to actually have been some form of intelligence or surveillance, or to give them foreknowledge of the facility, right? She could have just been doing a tour. The point is that, you know, there have been 30, I believe there are 35 Capitol Hill police out of their 2,000-man force who are under investigation for their behavior in the January 6th insurrection and running up to that, which may have meant that they had open sympathies. You might recall that a week later after the incident, they had a Capitol Hill officer who was reading the Protocols of the Elders of Zion on duty at an X-ray machine. That's a book that says Jews eat babies, right? It's part of the whole QAnon canon. So he was immediately suspect of neo-Nazi sympathies, because it was one of Adolf Hitler and Henry Ford's favorite books. So, you know, there are people out there who have sympathies. So the officer who took them on this illegal tour was probably a fan.
Yeah.
And we need to know that. We need to know who was there, when they were there, how you were escorting these people, why that officer wasn't wearing a mask, for example. And I'm sure they know that. She was an elected member, but she wasn't a member. She wouldn't be sworn in for another month, you know, or another few weeks. So why? There are other reports, and I had put these out on 7 January, of people coming into the Capitol and the House office buildings who were not authorized to be there and had used some form of dissimulation to get inside and were supposedly there for other reasons. These are things that the January 6th Commission or Select Committee will really have to go into. I want to warn you, though, for all of you people who are sitting there going, oh, we're going to arrest Lauren Boebert and give her a criminal record. Well, she already has been arrested before and she has a criminal record. These are not necessarily the people I would focus on in an investigation. It is the staffers who work for them. Because I want you to give this a minute's thought. Imagine what kind of staffers work for Lauren Boebert and justify everything that she does. Or Marjorie Taylor Greene. You're going to have to be just as up crazy as they are for you to keep working in that office and to handle legislations and procedures, right? Yeah. You know, there's not going to be any, you know, hidden liberals, or people with alternative lifestyles working on their staff, because these people are hardcore Trump people. On January 6th, we now know there were staffers on the top of the Capitol doing live stream videos and reporting information about the Capitol. Lauren Boebert herself said where Nancy Pelosi was live. Yeah. That may have been inadvertent, but was she trying to actually identify her for what I called on the night of January 6th, murder cells, which is a terrorist counterterrorism term for people who are tasked out to hunt and kill people? I don't know, but it needs to be investigated.
Well, and Malcolm, we haven't talked to you since the DOJ memos, the whole, obviously, I mean, we don't even have to be an expert like you to go like, this was all planned and financed and all these moves at the Pentagon you and I talked about, like, what the F is he doing? Well, here we are, right? He's actually calling the Justice Department saying, just say it was corrupt, leave it to me and the Republican congressmen, some of whom he looks like he names later in the call. I mean, this was an organized coup. How? Okay, I don't know what venue I'm hoping the DOJ, in addition to this January 6th commission, are getting to the top of this, not the bottom, the top.
There was an interesting thread in Mueller, she wrote's Twitter feed today, which I thought actually did some good analysis of the legal moves of the Justice Department, which indicated, all these tiny little activities, which indicated that they are looking at a greater, broader conspiracy, starting off with the fact that, the president did have the Justice Department, was demanding the Justice Department get involved to go out and try to smear the entire election process. That guy who was the deputy at the Department of Justice who apparently was Trump's go-to hitman, Clark, who was writing these memos saying the Justice Department is looking for irregularities and is going to launch an investigation into irregularities.
Yeah, somebody wrote it on
Georgia.
paper, so that and that he was overruled, but tried to write it on paper. I mean,
right.
Malcolm, as you said, this wasn't a random date. January 6th is only a small part of this larger coup plan, which involved the date they were going to certify the vote. It was to disrupt certifying the vote so Donald Trump could say, oh, there was fraud and we'll throw it to the states and yada, yada, right?
Yes, and that's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. There was a lot broader conspiracy than we know. Justice Department tear down the walls for all of these people's ability to hide. By going out and saying to congressmen and by extension Donald Trump that no one can hide behind their official job duties, to say they cannot be brought before a court and on subpoena and discuss these things. There is no longer executive privilege on this extraordinary event to overthrow American democracy. We have to allow a lot of that to take place. But where I'm more interested in is what I call, and I've said this before about the Trump-Russia scandal, there is always one piece of data that is missing. And in the intelligence community, we call it the bridge between X conspiracy or X activity we've identified and X activity that we've identified that will lead to a conspiracy. And, Trump did a good job of covering it up with Roger Stone and, Bill Barr, just eliminating the ability for us to see the bridge, and Mueller, by using legalese and letting people infer what the bridge is and not even investigate his ties to Moscow, which is the real bridge, right? Where the money is.
Yeah.
In this particular instance, it's the people like Stuart Rhodes, the head of the Oath Keepers, Enrique Tarrio, the head of the Proud Boys. These people had a command and control cell on Capitol Hill. They had been around Roger Stone all day. The Proud Boys were his personal bodyguards. Him and the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys had been his bodyguards for years. I mean, someone had to make a story, an arc that led from all of these people going to the Capitol, right, to how they were infused and motivated to go to the Capitol during Donald Trump's speech. There was far too much coordination.
Well,
everyone shows up with body armor. Everyone shows up with helmets. Yeah. Everyone shows up with sticks and riot gear. Why?
And mace.
Is the number one thing we look for in intelligence.
Yeah.
Common sense dictates that these people were informed that they should be ready to do X. Yeah. And by saying, maybe Trump said, yeah, it's going to be a wild day. That was it. But there was far greater coordination below that.
Well, and let's talk about the ongoing coup, because that's what you're here for, is to scare the out of all of us. The Arizona election frauded has been widely mocked, but an investigative reporter, I don't know if you saw Jane Mayer's piece in New Yorker, warned that the wealthy contributors backing the effort to undo Trump's election loss posed a grave threat to democracy. She talked about groups. Rich and powerful conservative groups are deeply committed to gathering power to undo future election losses by Republican candidates. And they said that cyber ninjas had a tiny amount of money coming from the states in Arizona. The vast proportion of it, something like 5 million, comes from contributors who are basically national conspiracy theorists who are aligned with Trump. You have Overstock guy, right? Yep. Patrick Byrne, Michael Flynn, Sidney Powell, the Heritage Foundation, the American Legislative Exchange Council, backed by big corporation, Bradley Foundation of Milwaukee, which is one of the biggest conservative foundations. It says,
you know what?
It says they're exploiting hang on, let me just finish this. They're exploiting the distrust of American elections in order to push through laws that crack down on voting rights, keep people they don't want from the polls, basically, and laying the foundation for a lot of distrust about 22 and 24. So it's kind of a dangerous precedent that's going on here. This is a larger ongoing coup, correct?
First, let me say this. I know Jane Mayer. I like Jane Mayer. We worked together back when there was the whole torture thing was going on. She is one of the best strategic journalists in the United States.
Yeah.
And I say strategic because every time she writes something, it may take months for it to come together. It is some insanely brilliant piece of analysis. She's like Ronan Farrow, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't ever want Jane Mayer to write about you because she'll have all the receipts, and then she'll probably go to lunch with Ronan Farrow to see if there's anything else.
Yeah.
So in this particular article, which everyone needs to read, there is no liberal equivalent to the right-wing money train that's out there. There really isn't.
Yes, I said from my little studio in my basement.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, if you were a conservative, you would be having a multi-million-dollar studio.
Yes,
and
I
you would
know.
be on Clear Channel and broadcast all over the world.
I'm sorry.
You know, you would be
yes.
Seb Gorka, and people would be rolling their eyes at you. But they have an entire constellation of billionaires. Yeah. And these people are out to destroy American democracy, period.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody focuses on the Koch brothers, and everybody focuses on the Mercers. There are hundreds of others out there.
Yeah.
Those people are just the ones with the big mouths. These guys don't say anything, and they spend the money. In case you're wondering why OANN, One American News Network, is so popular, and now, you know, Fox is on the outs and Newsmax is on the outs, people are throwing money to destroy American
We've been screaming this for years. If they can spend billions and millions on right-wing propaganda to spew lies out there, they can't spend a little bit for the few progressive broadcasters to get the truth out there. That's all, you know, we just, little old us, that's all we're doing is putting the truth out. You know, facts, logic, whether it's COVID or it's January 6th or it's election. You know, the election.
But you're not crazy.
Yes. Well,
right?
my staff would tend to disagree.
Crazy people would open their wallets to you.
My staff can testify for that. Well. But anyway, all right, Malcolm, great stuff. Thanks for the heads up on Dr. Mia Bloom. That was fantastic too. And you are a patriot, sir.